A five-star commits today. Terry Bussey makes his pick, and we make the case for why he is such a special athlete. Now, speaking of stars, they are coming out in full force for USC at Colorado. LeBron, Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Tom Brady, Kamala Harris, Tom Cruise, all expected to be there. But we're going to highlight some names you might not know as well. Which top prospects are in attendance? Steve Wiltfong has all the details. And expectations for Nebraska on the turf, very different than on the trail. We'll hit on that later. All of it and more as the college football recruiting show starts right now. Alongside 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, I'm Emily Proud. Submit your questions in the chat. The only way you can be a part of said chat is by subscribing to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Also, one more request. Please hit the like button on this video so we know that you're watching. You go do that, and we're going to hit the headlines, and we start with some breaking news. It is official. The #1 athlete in the class, Terry Bussey, has committed to Texas A&M. He picked the Aggies over Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, and LSU. Andrew, number 10 on your freaks list. What makes him so freaky?
Well, Emily, he can do a little bit of everything, right? The big debate behind the scenes at 24/7 Sports is what position is Terry Bussey best at? Some of us think it's wide receiver. Other people think it's defensive back. And talking with someone in College Station this morning, they're having the same debate. They said, but, you know, he can play whatever he wants. If he has to snap the ball as a long snapper, we'll let him do that. He's a really talented athlete, state champion in the triple jump, 10.66 in the 100-meter dash, 4,000 yards of offense last year, over 100 tackles on defense, 4 pick sixes. He's one of the best two-way guys in the country.
Definitely a good problem that A&M wants to have. All right, in coaching news, Michigan State formally firing Mel Tucker yesterday, this a week after notifying him of their intent to do so. The Spartans have lost 2 commits recently. Andrew, what happens with this class now that it's official?
Well, I would expect some more defections until Mel Tucker's replacement is hired. I mean, that's just the reality. Kids are going to look around. Other schools are going to try to poach off that commit list. I think the situation that's going to hurt Michigan State when looking towards the long term is if you look at all the blue chip prospects for us, so that's 4 and 5 stars, only 7% of them are uncommitted right now. We got 14 weeks to go before that early signing period. I think for Michigan State, the biggest thing is going to be holding on to Nick Marsh, in-state wide receiver commit. He is the prize of that recruiting class. So I think the staff there in East Lansing, the members that are left, they got to keep him on board.
All right, we are keeping an eye on the in-state battle for one of Arizona State's top commits in the 2024 class. 3-star athlete Dylan Tapley. He scheduled a visit to Arizona this weekend. What kind of athlete are these schools fighting over?
Well, he's listed as an athlete because he can play some defensive back, but you pop on that senior tape, and he is a jump ball winner on the outside. Huge production numbers over the past 2 years. He's got a dangly frame, and I think when you look at what Arizona wants to do on offense, they got a wide receiver, T-Mac there, who can go up and get the football. I think Dylan is in the same mold. So real interesting recruitment, guy that can cover a lot of turf with that stride. And I think for him, he's got to figure out what quarterback he wants to catch passes for long term. Is it Jaden Rashada at Arizona State, or is it his good friend Damon Williams, who's committed to Arizona in the 2024 cycle?
Definitely a tough choice. Some good options there. All right, 24/7 Sports national recruiting editor Brandon Huffman put in a crystal ball for Oregon to land 4-star running back Jason Brown. Now, the Seattle native, he watched the Ducks absolutely dismantle Colorado. How does he, as an athlete, dismantle a defense, Andrew?
By finding the end zone. He's played 4 games here through his senior season. He's averaging 21.7 yards per carry, which is insane. But every 2.4 carries, he takes it for 6 points. He's low to the ground. He's got great contact balance, good vision. He's creative at the second level. Easy to see why Dan Lanning and the Ducks are pushing for him. And he's a guy that's going to be able to have success in the Big Ten, I think, with that play style.
Certainly. All right, it's time now for the Wiltfong Whip Around with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, let's go ahead and start with that breaking news. Terry Bussey to Texas A&M. What does this big ad mean for the Aggies?
Well, they just added maybe the best two-way player in high school football since Travis Hunter, and that's what he aspires to be like on the next level. Talked to him earlier today. You think about Champ Bailey at Georgia, Charles Woodson at Michigan, and then Hunter and what he did in the opener against TCU. He doesn't plan to come off the field in College Station, and he said that's the way Jimbo Fisher and his staff recruited him the whole time. Andrew Evans talked about the stats at the top of the show, the 74 rushing touchdowns, 48 passing touchdowns, 24 career interceptions with a lot of pick sixes. He's a guy that's coming to Texas A&M to make a difference on offense, whether that's in the backfield, the slot, or at running back, and then in the secondary. And then he wants to play special teams. He doesn't want to come off the field. Major pickup for Texas A&M. They now have the number 3 recruiting class in the land, and this is a guy that can bring a jolt to every side of the ball for them as a true freshman.
We're going to dig into his tape a little bit later on in this show, but let's go to Austin. The Longhorns, they host Kansas. Five-star wide receiver DeCorian Moore, a lot of hosts this weekend. He's currently committed to LSU, but Sark is looking for that spatula, Steve. So what's the latest on Texas's pursuit of the Duncanville native?
Yeah, what a terrific visitor list that they have at Texas this weekend. More on that on Horns 247. 5-star Kobe Black is going to be there, who we love Texas for in 2024. But there's not a player that's going to be in Austin this weekend that Steve Sarkisian and company are going to be more excited to see than DeCorian Moore out of Duncanville. And they just had him there a couple weeks ago for the win over Wyoming. He's an absolute elite player that's trying to help Duncanville win its second straight state title. And we've seen what Steve Sarkisian's been able to do with elite receivers throughout his career. And I think that's attractive to DeCorian Moore. His commitment to LSU, I think, kind of surprised Texas. And ever since he jumped in the boat for LSU back in August, they've been pedal to the metal. And we see it starting to make hay as they've gotten him to campus for what will be a second time this fall. And I think that they should be nervous in Baton Rouge, as Texas is obviously making an impression on this very special pass catcher.
Steve, Colorado looking to put that Oregon loss behind them. They welcome USC on Saturday. Early kickoff there on the West Coast, 9 a.m. They got a few different visitors. I know that visitors list has been reworked, but Nick Marsh, I just mentioned him with Michigan State. Jordan Davidson, one of our top running backs in the class of 2025. And then Gage Ginther, a offensive lineman committed to Tennessee. So it seems like the Buffs are looking to bust out the spatula here in advance of the early signing period.
Yeah, it's a very talented visitor list this weekend. And they were also tracking to have 2 5-star receivers, Ryan Wingo and Cameron Coleman, in for official visits, but Deion Sanders and his staff want to push those to December, where Coach Sanders and the staff can spend more time with them. But Nick Marsh, one of the top receivers in the country, obviously committed to Michigan State right now. Our colleague Alan True was first to report that he'll be in Boulder. And talking to Alan, this is a visit that's been in the works behind the scenes. Nick has committed to Michigan State twice now during his process, the second time over Penn State, Pittsburgh, and Kansas. But Colorado is a school that he is very intrigued by, ready to get out there and soak in that atmosphere. And then Gage Ginther is a 2024 offensive lineman. That is a major target for them as they try and continue to shore things up around the line of scrimmage. We love what they have at quarterback. We love the way they've recruited those skill positions. Gage Ginther is important to recruit as there is out there for Coach Sanders and company, and they've recruited him as a 5-star in their mind as they try and flip him from Tennessee. They got him to campus in January. He had a fantastic time. That was when he was maybe seeing the infancy stages of this coaching staff. Now he's been able to see them beat 3-1. Get some big wins, get some excitement around the program, and getting them back is huge. And then Jordan Davidson, same thing. He said Colorado is a major contender coming out of his January visit, seeing Sean Lewis's offense, seeing what Coach Sanders has been able to do and changing that culture. They are in the thick of that. He's got 50 scholarship offers. We've seen some buzz around Texas, Oklahoma, programs like that. But Colorado is one that you got to put near the top of the list with the way they've recruited him and what they've been able to show on the field so far.
Let's head to the SEC. Auburn hosting number 1 Georgia. Also, quite a few 2024 talents, including 5-star Florida State commit safety KJ Bolden and 4-star Alabama commit defensive lineman Jeremiah Beeman. Where does Hugh Freeze stand with these potential flips?
Well, Auburn was Spatula U, if you remember, at the end of the 2022 cycle with all the great players and blue chippers. They were able to flip with the excitement around Hugh Freeze and his coaching staff. And there's going to be a lot of excitement around this game with Georgia coming to town. And this is an opportunity for Auburn to continue to show the progression this program is making under the first-year staff. They're a top 25 team on defense right now, right out of the gate. So I think that's something that is catching the eye, certainly of Jeremiah Beeman, who is committed to Alabama right now. He's also built a really good relationship with Coach Garrett, the defensive line coach, who has an NFL background. So that's exciting to him. And so he's committed to Alabama, but right now he's in dot I's, cross T's phase and getting up there, getting around that new Auburn coaching staff, making sure he gives Auburn a fair shake, stacking it up against Alabama. He was also at Colorado recently, plans to go back there for an official visit. This is a chance for Auburn to continue getting Jeremiah Beeman to think otherwise as far as Tuscaloosa goes. And then KJ Bolden, obviously committed to Florida State. I think that's an uphill climb for Auburn and Georgia right now, but he's been to Auburn a couple times. This is a visit that he's had on the radar for quite some time, even before he committed to Florida State. He loved his time there in March, loved his time there in April. He's talked about the entire staff being on the same page and seeing what they're building over there. That spring game was a downpour. KJ Bolden still loved it. So Auburn is just a place where he's always been able to see himself. I'm not predicting a flip, but both these guys have gotten good vibes from the Auburn staff. And if they play well against Georgia, you never know. Could be a special day on the Plains.
Steve, well, Auburn's got it cranking on defense, but the offense has been an issue in recent years. And two of the other visitors on the list, Nikar, who just decommitted from Georgia. I think you reported Miami, Florida State were in there, but he's going to spend the weekend on the Plains. What's the latest there? And then also with Amir Jackson, a top 247 tight end committed to the University of Florida.
Yeah, well, they brought Hugh Freeze there to fix that offense, and his past tells us that eventually Auburn's going to have one of the most potent offenses in the country. Like the way they've recruited so far since he's been there. And Amir Jackson, look, that's a guy that schools covet at the tight end position. Now, I still think it's a long road to flip him from Florida, but with this being an unofficial, if they can get him back for an official visit and continue to make some hay there, we'll see what happens. Nikar, when he decommitted from Georgia, the first school and the school I heard the most about was Miami, but certainly Auburn is one of great intrigue, and him setting that visit up so quickly. It's a school that he's been building a rapport with behind the scenes. They're definitely a major contender for him as well, and we'll see how the weekend goes. He's obviously going to see a major need at his position on Saturday.
All right, another big game in the SEC. The Vols are looking for revenge against South Carolina in their own building on Saturday. It'll be a packed house with guys like four-star running back Daniel Hill, four-star Cam Michael, and four-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton all plan to be in attendance at Neyland Stadium. So where does Tennessee fit in with those recruitments?
Well, there's some believe that they lead for Cam Michael right now. They were one of the first schools to kind of recruit him as an offensive player. He's someone that has a skill set to certainly shine in the secondary, but Tennessee, their offense, and the way they've been able to recruit guys like Mikey Matthews, maybe going in there and playing alongside this terrific receiver class, is something that's exciting to Cam Michael, and really just what Coach Heupel has been able to do historically on the offensive side of the ball has stood out to him. So this is another opportunity for them to continue racking up inches in that recruitment. Jordan Seaton, he was supposed to visit Oklahoma this weekend on an official. Now he's going to Tennessee on an unofficial. He told me yesterday that he wants to start seeing these schools that he hasn't been to before. He's heard about the atmosphere inside Neyland. He wants to experience it for himself. He loves the way Tennessee has recruited quarterbacks. He thinks that's incredibly important to his process. And so this is an opportunity for Tennessee to set themselves up for an official visit and make a huge run here for one of the most coveted, uncommitted players in the country. I think this one has a lot of roadway. He has named Alabama his his favorite recently. Ohio State has also been a favorite. They're both in there. Oregon, Colorado, Florida, some of the other contenders, South Carolina, a contender. So we'll see what happens with Jordan Seaton this weekend, but he loves the offense. And then Daniel Hill, top 247 running back. I like where Alabama stands, but South Carolina is a program that looked like the leader at one point, and Tennessee's the third school. He's going to see two of those schools play this fall. I think he's trying to make a decision sometime soon after this visit Tennessee would love to add him to their recruiting class as well as one of those running backs that can also be very dangerous catching the football.
Steve, Duke, big game for them. Could be the biggest recruiting weekend ever for the Blue Devils. Tons of top 247 talent expected to be in Durham. Mike Elko, he's the guy pulling the strings here. How has he been able to not only win games, but get Duke in the conversation with some of these four-star prospects? That hasn't always been the case.
Well, he brings so much positive energy to the football program, and really, he's been one of the best defensive coordinators in college football for the last decade. I think there's no disputing that. And Duke, again, this year boasting one of the best defenses in the country. They're top 5 in scoring, top 5 against the pass. And then he brought in Kevin Johns to run his offense, who's one of the more brilliant play callers in the country. And so those two guys kind of pulling the strings on their respective side of the ball. They've infused a great culture. It's been an exciting turnaround for them to win 9 games that first year after only winning 10 the 3 years prior. And from a recruiting standpoint, Mike Elko has always been an involved recruiter. This is a guy that loves mining for talent, guys that have high upsides, guys like Jesse Bates, who he brought to Wake Forest, who's now one of the stars in the NFL. Yeah, that's what he loves to do. This is like in his wheelhouse at Duke to find guys like they found at Wake Forest and win big with them. And his involvement, he put together a terrific staff of great recruiters on the field and off the field. It's resonating. Like you said, this is the biggest recruiting weekend that I've seen in my 20 years of covering recruiting.
Wow. All right. That says something. Steve, I got 2 quick questions for you before I let you go. One, will you remind people what the like button looks like so they can find it? I mean, we only have less than half of you have hit that button, so go ahead. Looks just like a big old Steve Wiltfong thumbs up. Next question. Along the same lines of Mike Elko, they seem to really be honing in on the 2025 cycle. They've got a strong 2024 class, but who should we keep an eye on Saturday as Duke looks to build on next year's class?
Well, let's bring Whip around full circle. We talked about the number 1 athlete in the 2024 class, Terry Bussey, and his commitment to Texas A&M. Let's now talk about the number 1 athlete in the 2025 class, Jordan Young, who was at Duke a couple weeks ago. This is a guy that Duke is eyeing as a playmaker on offense. You can't have too many one-touch and score potential guys at a place like Duke, but he certainly has a skill set to do a lot of things on the next level, and him coming back so quickly shows you the kind of interest that he has in Duke. Top 247 linebacker Cameron Smith, top 247 offensive lineman Alex Payne are 2 guys that this Duke staff has been entrenched with as well. And there's a lot of special 2026s coming to campus as well, because if Duke wins a lot of games like these, if they can keep racking up wins like this, these sophomores coming to campus, all they're going to know by the time it's time for them to make a decision is a Duke team that's competing for conference titles. They're trending that way, and guys like Kendry Harrison, the number 1 tight end in our 2026 ranking, is going to be there. And we'll see if Duke can capitalize that like they did against Clemson with another primetime win over Notre Dame perhaps on Saturday night.
Steve, I lied. We got a viewer question for you.
Let's bring it.
Let's do it. Okay. Poppy Spence wants to know what's the latest on 5-star defensive lineman Aiden Breland out of Monterey.
Well, he's coming off a great trip to Georgia. I think that the pulse is with the Bulldogs right now with their player development and game atmosphere. He wanted to get back there and see a game atmosphere, but just the way that Georgia's plays defense, rotates a ton of guys, develops their players in the first rounders. I give Georgia the edge right now, but you got Miami in there strong. You got Oregon in there strong. So we'll see how the chips continue to fall in the recruitment of Aiden Breland.
All right, we will certainly see. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show today. We appreciate all the great info that we get from you. If you want more of that info, be sure that you are subscribed to the 247 Sports YouTube page. That's where you're going to see all the past Wilfong Whip arounds. And we're over 200,000 subscribers on this channel. That is absolutely nuts. If you are not subscribed, you are missing out. Terry Bussey, the 15th ranked player in the nation, the number 2 player in the talent-rich state of Texas. Well, now he is staying near home, about 3 hours down the road, picking the Aggies earlier today. Let's continue the conversation about the #1 athlete in the class of 2024 and welcome in Smoke Dixon here to break down some of Terry Bussey's film. Smoke, we usually assign a guy a position, but in this case, he's just the #1 athlete. What do you think that means?
Well, when I hear athlete, I hear dynamic, explosive playmaker with the ball in his hand. And the special teams coordinator, defensive coordinator, and the offensive coordinator all want him to play on their side of the ball. Let's get to the first play. This first play is Bussey's in the middle of the field, and he's going to see him come off the field, come off the hash, and high point the ball, which is a difficult play to do, and finish with the ball in his hand, and also with the ability to score. Run the tape. See him locate the ball, gather, high point, and now put foot in ground with the ability to score. Next play. Now this is unconventional, but it's the same thing as you see Terry going up, high pointing it with the ability to finish with the ball at the rim. Next, we're going to go to basketball explosiveness, right? When you talk about explosiveness, this is the ability to put foot in the ground, get vertical, and finish with a dunk. Next play. Football, same thing, the ability to come to gather your balance, put foot in the ground, accelerate, score, but now you're going to see the speed as he spins off and hurdles the guy. Now separates, gives 10 yards burst, and score with the ball in the end zone. Dynamic football player with the ball in the ends.
Love that you're showing those basketball highlights. Our scouting guys talk about how much they use that film to evaluate some of these players, and you're going to show us another one because I want to see what this guy can do on offense.
Well, on offense, when you look at it, he's going to play receiver. When you're a receiver, there's 3 things that I need you to do. Separate, catch the ball, create plays with the ball in your hand, but also have the speed to score and put the ball in the end zone. First thing that we're going to do is look at him on the basketball court. As you see him getting a good athletic position, crossover, that's now showing you the ability to create space in a tight, confined space with the ability with ball, balance, and body control to finish at the rim. Next clip. Same thing as you see on the football field. Gets in a confined space. Left foot in the ground, right foot in the ground, gathers, and explosiveness with a burst and speed. And again, watch him separate with speed and score with the ball in the end zone. Next thing we talk about balance and body control. That's the ability to take a hit, regain your strength, regain your balance, and also spin off like he's doing right here, running through 2 defenders. And again, what he does well is score with the ball in his hands. Next clip. Same thing that we talked about. Run after the catch ability. The ability to create plays when there aren't plays that's going to be there. Your ability to catch the ball, square up, create plays, put your foot in the ground, and also score with an explosive movement.
Yeah, Smoke, you said that all these coordinators are going to be fighting over his services. So how can a defensive coordinator use Terry Bussey?
Well, on defense, as he plays corner, you already saw his ability to run, explosive, contact balance, quickness in confined space, all ability to cover. But the thing that separates Terry from most defenders is the ability to catch the football, but also shows you that even if I play offense, I got some toughness. Here goes his toughness play. Play the clip. Middle of the field safety, you're going to see him come through, explode, and just pay attention now. Helmets are going to roll, body's going to be on the ground. Next clip. We talked about his ability to go up and high point and finish with the ball in his hands. Here he goes. Locate the ball again, high point like you just saw in the basketball film, and be able to finish with the ball in his hand and getting that ball back to the defensive coordinator. Next play that you want to look at is a corner. As a cornerback, we all get in a confined position of we have a guy in our blind spot. What Terry does a pretty good job of, and he has a natural instincts and awareness. He plays with guys in his blind spot, but he still has the ability to go up, calm, collective, go up and intercept the football. Next clip. Now this is one of the most incredible plays I've seen. He's in the middle of the field, comes off, locates the ball, goes up, high points it, knocks the guy out, but again, he finishes with the ball in his hand. Again, a DB that can catch the ball, run after the catch, but also has contact courage to run through people. He's also a good defender.
I'd love to see highlights just as much as the next person. We show a lot of highlights on this show, but we got to talk about the other stuff, and that's his weaknesses. Where's some room for improvement and just some of the knocks that you might get from Terry Bussey?
Well, you can improve your size. He's an undersized guy on offense and defense, but again, he plays big. He always plays high In basketball, you see him play above the rim. In football, you see him go up in high point plays. But his size, he's an undersized guy, he's a 5'10". So that's one of his weaknesses. Next clip. He's a positionless player. So again, he hasn't worked on his craft. And he's not going to be able to go in there and say, okay, I played DB for 15 games, I played receiver for 15 games. So he's a positionless player. So he's going into a building not knowing what room to go in. As a receiver, being able to be available, understanding coverages, is a safety in the middle of the field, a safety on both of the hash. You got to understand to be able to read coverages and get open. Eye discipline. Eye discipline has a lot to do with the next clip is tackling. You've seen him just run through a guy, but not have the vision and the ability to get his eyes on that target, finish up, and wrap. And as we get to this clip, we saw this earlier for his toughness. You saw toughness and courage, which tackling has to do with 90% courage, 10% eye discipline and finishing. He runs through the guy, but he only runs through him with his eyes closed. He doesn't finish up, wrap the guy up, and finish with a tackle on the ground.
Good stuff. Thank you, Smoke. 247sports.com is the place for all things college football and recruiting. For more exclusive information, become a VIP member. The Huskers are off to a 2-2 start to the Matt Rhule era, but as we've seen him do at all the previous stops, they are building to something bigger, and it certainly shows on the trail. Nebraska, 23rd nationally, 6th in an expanded Big Ten. Joining us now on the program, Mike Schaefer is with us from Huskers 24/7. And Mike, big test this weekend hosting Michigan, but we're of course on the show here more focused on the visitors off the field. So how have Nebraska targets maybe been reacting to this up and down start to the Rhule era in Lincoln?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things sort of translate as Nebraska gets further into conference play. But right now, the commits seem pretty content with what they've heard from the staff about how it was going to look. It's a work in progress. It's a house being built, and you're trying to live in it too. And so I think for the most part, the commits understand that. There are going to be a few guys that Nebraska is going to have to ward off other people for. Specifically, a guy like Ja'Cory Barney, someone that down there in Florida, he's going to have no shortage of people interested in him. But the bulk of this class is largely built in Texas and Nebraska, two areas where Matt Rhule has really kind of been on message and has connected well with those commits. And so I'm not anticipating a lot of flips late in the game for Nebraska, but there are going to be some skill position guys, especially at that wide receiver spot, where they're going to have to fight really hard to keep them.
Mike, Nebraska's sitting right now with 25 commits. Seems like a few priority targets still out there. Grant Brix, Caleb Benning. What's the latest on those two and the chances for the Cornhuskers?
Yeah, it's actually up to 26 right now. They got one late yesterday, and Eric Ingwerson flipped from Pitt to Nebraska. And so they're kind of getting down to not a lot of spots left. But two of those primary guys you mentioned right there, safety Caleb Benning from Omaha West Side, top team in the state here in Nebraska. His dad, Damon Benning, is the color analyst for the Nebraska radio broadcast. So the expectation is Nebraska should be able to end up with Caleb Benning, but he's really kind of drawn this out, even though it feels like it's very largely a Nebraska-Kansas State battle with Nebraska way out in front. He told me that he was hoping to make a decision before the end of this month. I checked. Does not look like it's going to happen. Right now. So we'll see if he continues to pull that out into the fall. And then Grant Brix, of course, 4-star offensive lineman. You're talking Nebraska, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Alabama. He's a really talented guy that absolutely would be a huge win for Matt Rhule to pull him away from Kansas State, Oklahoma, two schools that recruit offensive linemen really well here in the Midwest. Got great relationships with them. I just saw Grant play last week. He told me he feels like he's close to a decision. Indications are he may want to stay close to home. The University of Nebraska is only 90 minutes away from his hometown. So I think the Huskers are in a pretty good spot here, too, for Grant Brix.
A lot of exciting things happening at Nebraska. Mike, you are all over it. Thank you so much for being on the show. Make sure you're checking out Huskers 24/7 for all things Nebraska recruiting and all things happening on the field. A lot of excitement in Lincoln, a lot of excitement on the show. Before I go, a reminder to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, do all the great things. Thank you for being here. For Andrew Ivins, I'm Emily Proud, and this is the College Football Recruiting Show.